I featured this shot in my last video, but I didn't stop and say much about it because the video wasn't about power draw shots. And Mike Massey used to use this shot as in part of his exhibition thing, and his deal was to really take it to the extreme and go all the way down to the bottom rail and then back up to the top rail in a situation like this. So I wanted to take that and put it in a more practical and common issue that players deal with all the time, from getting too straight in and not getting the right angle. So last week I was playing with it, and I wound up with a whole bunch of different versions and a bunch of clips on the same exact shot and just experimenting with different things. And this morning I was going through my folder and about to delete all these different clips, and then I was like, well, maybe I should use this and create another video, because I know a lot of people struggle with it and need help with it, and they don't know what they're doing wrong, so we're going to take a closer look. Yeah, it's amazing how many matches a player can sit and watch and over again and never learn much of anything because they're actually distracted by the shot itself, and they're not focusing in on what the player and his body is doing. So I'm going to try to force your eyes off the shot, and we're going to take a closer look at what my right arm is doing, what my bridge is doing, what everything on my body is doing, and that should help you key in on what you need to do on a shot like this. The whole point of the last video was to get the right position, and the correct thing for me to do here is not get in this position and to go back to the 5 ball and figure out what I did wrong and why I got in this position. The correct position would be right about here, so we can just use the rail to bounce off and get right on the 8 ball. And nevertheless, here we are, and I can't get over on the left-hand side of the table, so this is pretty much all we have is a power draw shot to get right on the 8 ball. And there's a lot of reasons that players are reluctant to shoot this shot, and one of them is that they're worried that the cue ball is going to come straight back and hit the tip, so that kind of screws them up and keeps the poke stroke going to where they're not following through right on the draw shot. But that's just one thing in a million, and you need to start by not worrying about that issue anymore. This cue ball is not going to come directly back because we're going to be putting a little bit of left-hand English on it, and that's going to deflect the cue ball a little bit, and it's going to bend it back up. Cue ball is actually going to push past where the object ball was and go a little bit further than where the object ball was before it picks up enough traction to go ahead back down table and off the short rail. So if you can imagine a car, doing a burnout on a hill going uphill, as it's spinning the tires, the car is going to move backward a little bit just because of the weight of the car before it picks up the traction, stops burning out, and takes off up the hill. And if we were just putting straight bottom on this, there would be a chance of the cue ball coming straight back and hitting the tip of your cue. But your natural instinct, along with your natural reflexes, will get the cue out of the way. So the point is, you're worrying too much about this when it should be the least of your worries. And you're seeing bad stuff happening before you even take the shot, and that's not a good way to take a shot. So it's time to stop being a worrying about trivial little things that aren't going to happen anyway. I mean, you can't play pool like that. It's no place for a pool player. You gotta relax, take a deep breath, keep your confidence, and go ahead and do what you know you can do. And pool's supposed to be fun, remember? Now, motocross is way more fun, especially if you're a bit of a head case. But all that's beside the point. You didn't choose motocross, you chose pool. So let's try to enjoy it a little bit instead of worrying like a little worrywart. Just quit sweating it. There's other things to concentrate on. There's two main reasons for a player to screw this up, and both of them are rooted in nervous tension. The first issue deals with coming up on a shot or jumping up, and what's happening is the back of your cue is coming up in the front of the cue. The tip of the cue is going down, and you're actually hitting the table before you hit the cue ball, and this is where you get that dreaded miscue from. And it happens in the blink of an eye, so you can't really see it, but all you know is that the cue ball jumped up off the table, and it's just a humiliating issue, and that again is caused from jumping up on the ball. And the second big issue is in dropping your elbow, and it's on your grip hand elbow, and it's dropping down, causing the tip of the cue to come up, and you're not hitting below center at all. At best, you're hitting center ball, and this is why the cue ball doesn't do anything. People ask me all the time why I don't do warm-up strokes, and I do. I just do them while I'm standing up and lining up the shot and trying to find the line. Now, the draw shot is a little bit different for me. I'll do them both while I'm standing up behind the shot and while I'm down on the shot, but it's not for the reason that most people do them. Now, we're going to take a look at something, but I'm not recommending people do this. If it works for you, go ahead and do it, but it's just some kind of weird natural quirk that I have in my game, and it works for me. At the point of contact in the cue ball, your elbow and your forearm should be exactly 90 degrees from the floor. Straight the hell up, 90 degrees from the floor. And that, again, is at the point of contacting the cue ball. With the draw shot, it's a little bit different. You want that grip hand a little bit further behind, maybe an inch, maybe an inch and a half, because you really want to follow through and spin this cue ball. Now, if we take a look at me doing these warm-up strokes, you'll start noticing there's a slip stroke in there, and I'm moving my grip hand further and further back, and you'll begin to see this red wrap coming further and further out as my grip hand tries to find the line and tries to find the point where I'm comfortable in following through a lot with this draw shot. And again, I don't recommend implementing this into your game. Get down on the shot with your hand at the right spot on the grip, and again, it's a little further back than normal on a power draw shot. There's a couple more things that you need to make note of. The reason we're not putting just dead center bottom on this is because it's going to sharpen the angle coming down to the bottom rail, and then it's just going to bounce out at the opposite angle, and you're liable to wind up something like this. The reason we're not putting right-hand English on it is because if we look at a downward view of the cue ball, if we put right on it, the cue ball is going to be spinning counterclockwise, and when it comes down and hits this rail, it's going to reverse itself, and it's going to be even worse than dead center bottom. The reason we're putting a little bit of left on it is because I don't want the cue ball coming straight back at the Q-tip, and because I want to keep the cue ball on the left-hand side of the table, the same side that the 8-ball is on. And this way I should be straight in line with the 8-ball for my choice of a stop shot or a draw shot or a follow shot to get on the 9. And when we play the rest of these clips, you also want to make note of how loose my right hand wrist is, my grip hand wrist. That's because I have a little bit of a slip stroke as I'm actually following through and going through the cue ball. It's a vital must-know pull shot, and it's not going to magically happen by itself. You really have to work on it, set it up 100 times until you're comfortable doing what I'm doing right here. And once you got that, then go ahead for the Mike Massey 18-foot draw shot. I promise you, you'll be glad that you did.